Hello everyone, good afternoon. Hope everybody's good. We are about to start our panel. I hope everyone that is around can also take a seat and come and join us in the front. All right, so my name is Ana Maria Meshkurti. I am representing today Mani's magazine, where I'm co-editor-in-chief, and I'm based in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, so I just landed this morning for this amazing panel with this amazing deep tech heroes, as I will call you from now on. I'm very excited to have you all today, where we will be discussing a little bit about how do we invest in deep tech? How do we really support startups? It's not just about, as everybody knows, funding, but it's about more than that. Deep tech is so much more complicated, I would say, than a regular startup, especially with the research and development that it takes, with the patient capital that it takes. And we're going to hear everything from our amazing speakers that I will introduce just right now. So welcome very much, Bilal Baloch, who is a partner at Shorooq Partners, Dr. Abdalla Kablan, GP at Wealth Ventures, and Amine Staali, MP and CEO at DeepMinds. Welcome to everyone, and thanks for coming here. As I like to do in all the panels that I moderate, I think that it's very boring if I introduce you guys and waste a lot of time. I would love for you to go ahead and introduce yourselves in the sense of like, what are you doing in your daily jobs? This is something that I'm sure you're all asked a lot. And we can start right on, Bilal, with a little bit more on how do you invest in those deep tech startups that you are looking at? So please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been told I need to speak quite loudly to avoid the noise around here. So if I'm screaming too much, then just let me know. What do I do on a daily basis? I'm essentially a glorified therapist for startup founders and CEOs. I run our value creation practice at Shorooq. That involves really three things. Working with our founders to help them solve their initial journey challenges, go-to-market, product-market fit. Many of our founders are starting their journey with us, certainly, at the seed stage. So they're about to now expand their teams, take their product to their customers, and that is a very different part of their journey than just sort of ideating in the proverbial garage and getting your business off the ground. The second thing I do is help our founders with their fundraising and capital raise. Our investment thesis sort of ends around the Series A stage, and so many of our companies that are graduating beyond that, we help them get plugged into international pools of capital, help bring investors from different markets into the region. You may have seen some of the news around some of those deals recently in our portfolio, and I do that on a daily and weekly basis with our companies. And then the third is talent. Right, I think we've entered a really exciting phase of the region's journey. You just came here from Riyadh. I think Saudi's opening has certainly been a catalyst, but also the seeds that the UAE sowed several years ago. We're now seeing the evolution of institutions, a genuine tech and venture ecosystem that talent from around the world wants to be a part of. And so part of my job is to help our founders find talent, both technical and non-technical, from around the world that can come here and solve some problems. I'll stop hogging the mic, but just on your first question about how we look for deep tech investments. Look, we've got the full gamut of deep tech companies in our portfolio, ranging from founders that on the face of it you would never have thought would be the founders and CEOs of a deep tech company. Non-technical background, coming from a developing market where there hasn't been much training from top engineering schools, all the way to PhDs in astrophysics from Harvard. So finding deep tech heroes really is sort of given away by the names. It's like finding a hero in any world, right? It's there's a playbook for it, but often you have to keep your eye on pretty innovative business models. And the ability of a founder to be able to execute. Just like oftentimes the CEO or principal or chairman of many educational institutions in the US does not come from an academic or education background, you don't necessarily need to come from a pretty deep tech background in order to run a deep tech company. So we like to keep ourselves open to both. What's important for us is to maintain a network of technical experts that can be part of our bench strength to be able to diligence these business models correctly, and also the full array of people that come as part of a team, including their existing investors advisory board, that can help that idea come to execution and fruition. So I'll stop there and pass it back.
Thank you so much for that. And as you were mentioning, a network of experts. So I want to come to you, Dr. Abdalla, because you were an expert, then entrepreneur, then you became a VC. You are totally into AI. So would love to learn a little bit more about what you're doing right now in AI. And I'm sure everybody wants to know about that as well. And also a little bit more on looking at these deep tech companies that maybe they are not being commercialized immediately, right? So how do you look at that? Because some of these deep tech companies, right, maybe in many years this could be interesting, but right now, how do you assess this is a company that you with your fund wants to invest in?
Thank you for the question. I mean, yeah, it's maybe to share very quickly about my journey. Like I'm a serial tech entrepreneur turned investor. So throughout my career, built a number of companies specializing in AI and machine learning. Some were successful, a lot were miserable failures, but I think I learned more from the failures than I did from the successes. I also keep, quite active when it comes to academia, so I still lecture and research topics ranging from machine intelligence to principles of algorithmic trading, mainly to keep my mind active, but it's also an HR hack because with my companies I never had a HR department, I always hired the best from class. And I do advise a number of institutions on matters related to digital innovation and technology adoption. I've been blessed because I had more than one good exit under my belt. The last being in 2021 when I exited my company Wiser AI to a NASDAQ listed company. And then my wife came and said, Abdalla, please don't build another tech company. We're done, let's go and live on the mountains. Yeah. She's half Scottish, so she wanted to go back to nature. So to circumvent her ban, I said maybe perhaps after this long journey having built companies and understood a bit the entrepreneur side of things, to circumvent the ban, maybe I should be investing in tech companies and tech entrepreneurs and people who are trying to solve problems the same way I've been doing it for the past 12, 13 years. And I started off as an angel investor. I fell in love with investing for two reasons. The first is I'm a very technical person. So if I have to roll up my sleeves and literally code with some of these companies I invested in, I would do it. I would guide and mentor and coach the founders because I'm very empathetic to the journey. I've had the ups and the downs and the greens and the reds. So I can really see it from an entrepreneur's perspective rather just an investor perspective. Second reason why I fell in love with investing is that it suddenly hit me when it's your company. It's like your baby. You go to bed thinking about it, you wake up thinking about it. When you're the investor, you're like the cool uncle. You play with the baby, and as soon as it starts crying, you give it back to the mom or dad, say, this is your problem, and you deal with it. So for that reason, after quite good investments, initially I said I would love to take my proposition to the next level and set up a proper VC structure. There's no place, I think, at the moment out there to do something like this than the capital of capital itself, which is why I set Delta Wealth Partners here in Abu Dhabi at ADGM, focusing predominantly in artificial intelligence, not because this is the trend at the moment. I finished my PhD in artificial intelligence in 2010. Back then, when I meet someone and say, hi, I have a PhD in AI, it used to be the end of the conversation. Now, it's become something quite interesting that everyone is interested in. So the focus is actually on that. Coming back to your question, even with choosing companies, there are multi ways to look at it. Number one, obviously you choose the founder sometimes before you choose the company. And there's a word that is really misused in investments in general, in the startup world, which is disruptors and disruption, and everyone loves disruption. I would rather look at construction rather than disruption, people who are actually building solid IP, intellectual property that is based on homegrown models that have been designed to solve a problem. So if the problem has not been solved and you are constructing something to solve it, then that makes it quite interesting for me. Even if you are at an early stage, that's when you could identify where this is going. Obviously, and we know this very well, like nobody can predict the future, but sometimes you need to have strategic foresight, and strategic foresight comes from, reading the market, analyzing the trends, but also it helps quite a lot that, I've been an entrepreneur, I built companies, I failed companies, and they also managed to succeed. So that kind of gives me that kind of, let's say, sense of seeing whether a company would have potential or not.
Thank you very much. So we have the glorified therapist, was it? The cool uncle. So Amine, now I want to know what you are in this trio with your venture builder, and how do you, you're really kind of coming in the middle with the talent, right? Finding the right talent, helping companies. So tell us a little bit about that, and how do you find all of this talent?
Thank you. That's why I'm sitting in the middle here. So we all come from, entrepreneurship. If you don't build a company and fail and build and fail and build and fail, you will not touch that intrinsic thing that makes businesses impactful. I've been in entrepreneurship since the last 15 years. I failed miserably from the first ventures, one on the other and the other and the other, until one of them made it, and it was very complicated. It was a medical device, and from there I built that sense and touch with the deep tech, that if you build something deep, it has a deep impact, not only on the business but in life in general. But throughout that journey, I realized that building such, building a venture or a successful business is not just me or the founder or the co-founder. It's a combination of many things. So having the right mindset, validation, execution, and team makes your chances much higher. And then having the objectivity and the continuous engagement and validation, and then getting away from perfection. Many people, they go to perfection. Perfection is the enemy of innovation. You'd rather make something that works and then impacts, rather than wait for it to be perfect. Nothing is perfect. So that mindset, we realized that makes impactful businesses. And then on the time I was blessed with partners. Some of them are here. And we came up together, we built up DeepMinds, and we specialize in deep tech venture building. The model is we look for heroes, those heroes, and we look at the human side of them, first of all, because without deep thinking and a deep purpose, you cannot build something really deep tech. Deep technology is not just a complex technology. It could be a complex technology but has no purpose. It has no meaning. So we start with those people first, vetting those people, getting along with them, understanding them, sharing the values. And then we go through the validation. And here in the validation, we take it very seriously. We take it internally, externally, until we feel the purpose. And then we go to the execution, and here the founders that we partner with, we want them to be the inspiring source, not the machine that does everything. And the founders, usually they are consumed because they do everything. They do the cleaning, they do the making, the breaking, the painting, the everything. And that dilutes their power. So we build up that machine that does the part that should be done, from a validation, building, testing, rebuilding, making, breaking, and all that stuff. And then the founder will be the inspiring source and the driving and the leading source. And so far we are blessed to have amazing founders with us. We have a portfolio of 10 ventures building amazing stuff, and looking forward to create a breed of cluster of deep tech in the region that moves this region from consuming technology to making our own technology for us.
Very nicely said. Thank you so much for that. And also I want to see in the audience, do we have any deep tech founders? Can you raise your hand if you're a deep tech founder? Okay. And do we have any investors in deep tech in the audience, or just general investors? Yes, thank you, sir. And do we have anybody who failed before? please don't leave our panelists alone. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. So Bilal, maybe let's go a little bit more on the ideas that these founders are bringing, right? These are complex ideas. It's very easy sometimes to see the start of that. You get it in one sentence. It's clear. How do you? Can you tell us a bit your experience on this? Because you hear a lot of these pitches and see a lot of this deal flow, and also maybe some advice that you might have to make this better.
Yeah. So look, I'll reflect a bit on my own journey. So I founded a company about 7 years ago in Washington, which had very limited aims, which was how can we connect businesses and buy-side investors to regulation and policy experts locally on the ground around the world. Oftentimes, if you're investing in a new market or you're expanding your operations to a new market, what you start to navigate perhaps too late in the process is the local regulatory architecture and a deep understanding of it from a sort of cultural, sociological, political, but also economic standpoint. Very narrow thesis, but we thought that there was enough sort of interest in it from certainly the world of finance and consulting. I'll bore you the story, but over the course of 7 years, we went from that idea to building a B2B software that combined human intelligence with artificial intelligence to deliver market insights from around the world to businesses in real time. So imagine if Reddit and LinkedIn had a baby, that was my company, okay? Sold that after 7 years and moved here to the region. Now, I'm not a technical founder. That is absolutely not the end of that company, although it's still going, is not where I thought I would go at the start of the journey. So therein lies, certainly for me, clues as to how I think about companies that are coming up in deep tech, and some of my colleagues as well. Because by its very definition, if we're talking about, call it what you want, frontier technologies, deep technologies, exponential technologies, oftentimes, by definition, these are not just ideas, but also technologies and business models, especially in early stage venture, that we haven't necessarily seen before, right? And so you have to look for clues as to where the sort of the current suite of our best tech, how can that be an enabler to the actual problem set? So let me make that less abstract. If a founder came up to me and said, I'm doing this in AI or cryptography or etc., and they're not leading with the problem, that to me, I wouldn't say it's a red flag, but it puts me off. Right? I'm already coming at it as an investor with not understanding what is the problem you're looking to solve. These are the bread and butter of whatever you're looking to build, whether it's a B2B company, whether there's tech to it, or whether it's not. Because ultimately, you need to think in simple terms about how can this problem be solved before you even start venturing into how do I add layers of other technology. And a case in point for us is one of our companies called Proteenia. Proteenia really wanted to solve the problem of sustainable farming in Egypt, right? And the founder and his co-founders realized that one of the ways to do this was to actually go into fish farming. And fish farming, the food for fish farming, can be cultivated quite sustainably from the larvae of ants, right? And so that was the initial problem. They wanted to solve for fish farming. They wanted to solve for sustainable farming. And as the problem set evolved and they started looking at sustainable farming, they started looking at food security, they started looking at healthcare, what started off as a very narrow problem set today has turned into an AI design company for therapeutics using the data set from the ant larvae that they collected over several years. They just won 2 golden tickets in Boston by Thermo Fisher, which is like winning an Oscar in biotech. And they licensed their first product to one of the world's leading pharmaceutical companies. And that's just their first product, right? So the evolution of that business model from founders that were so obsessed with the problem they were solving for, and then whether it's AI and tomorrow it may be something else, becoming a problem solver. I think that's really certainly my passion in technology, is how can technology be used to solve very real human, social, societal problems. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question.
Thank you so much. I learned something new definitely today. That was a very interesting story. We'll move now a little bit into the academia side of things. So Dr. Kablan, you wrote a book as well, which I have here that I had the chance to steal from him, actually. He didn't want to give it to me.
Was the last copy.
Wisdom. And of course, this brings you're very much in the academia as well, and you need to work with the academia closely to find these new deals. I'm sure the same for everyone, right? So can you tell us a little bit with the connection there and about your book as well, and about the academia, the connection that you have with academia and how you get the deal sourcing from there?
That's a very good question. It's twofold. Like when it comes to academia, there's a huge gap between industry and academia. A lot of the innovation, the research that happens in academia is very advanced, high level. However, it does not translate very well into the actual real world. I mean, in Europe, I live in Europe, we have this joke that science is always built in, like born in Europe. Technology is born in the US, mainly because they know how to implement the science that's being produced in Europe and turn it into actual products. And this is quite the same case at the moment when you see that there's a huge gap between, for example, taking artificial intelligence, things like large language models, thank God for ChatGPT and the llamas and the lambdas and all the good models that are out there. But in principle, neural networks existed for quite a while, all the way to the evolution to what became LLM. However, for it to be productized, it took a little bit of time. And this is where I think there's a huge opportunity in bridging the gap between what's happening in academia and what's happening really in the industry, which is why, as I said, I keep very close links with academia. I actually have a very proud story. I mentioned...
Better than Bilal's story?
I think for me slightly more, because it's not about me, it's about someone else. I mentioned that I do hire from class, and I mentioned I exited my company, Wiser AI, in 2021. Today, the CEO of Wiser, was also the CTO of the NASDAQ listed company that bought us, was my student, and I hired him from class in 2013, and he got promoted throughout the journey from a developer to a senior developer to a data scientist to a CTO, all the way to a CEO and the CTO of a publicly listed company. So that's a very proud kind of story for me, but it just shows that the model, if you find the right people, because I completely agree with Amine here as well, it's about the person, it's about the founders as well. Personally speaking, and this is maybe the nerdy side, other than research, like I published my book, Artificial Wisdom, The New Path for AI, mainly because, I mean, I was giving a speech at the House of Lords recently in the UK, and I said I get very annoyed at European politicians in general, because they always repeat this sentence of, we do data-driven decision-making and everything is data-driven. And I don't think things should be data-driven. We should be value-driven before we are data-driven. And there's a slight difference because, again, being the father of 2 kids now, it doesn't mean that to bring them up in this world that you need to teach them literally everything and feed them every single piece of information. Sometimes you need to shelter them. You need to tell them who they should play with and who they shouldn't play with. You should instill the right values. And that's why even with AI, when you're teaching the machine or you're doing the machine learning part of it, you have to respect the ladder, because the ladder is a 5-step process. You start with the data. If you process data, it becomes information. Information then evolves into knowledge, which is the knowledge base that you have. Knowledge, when applied, becomes understanding of the problem domain, and understanding with good processing and some intelligence may evolve into wisdom. Not all humans reach wisdom, and in the Quran we have يُؤْتِي الْحِكْمَةَ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. God would give wisdom to God whoever wants to give it to. And it's so difficult to reach wisdom even for humans, let alone in AI. Even though in AI, I mean, we're still stuck in number 3. We have not even gotten to number 4. Like most of the fantastic AI systems out there are still very glorified, fantastic knowledge bases. ChatGPT or LLMs, which I think is one of the best inventions in the past couple of decades, is still a sleight of hand trick. If you think about it from like a scientific perspective, it's a predictive model. Every single time it predicts the next word. to give you the impression that it's giving you a really fantastic, very clever sentence. And that's fantastic in its own right, but cognitively, it's not really intelligence. Coming back to wisdom and the difference between it and knowledge, because knowledge is knowing the difference between something that is true or something that is false. Wisdom is knowing something that is right or something that is wrong. And you need, as you're building your systems, to make sure that the data, because that's number one at the end of the day, is inclusive, is diverse, is clean. Your data acquisition, filtration, processing model should actually be built on these principles, which may sound philosophical, but even from a structural perspective and from a model perspective, it actually leads to a system that at the end of the day could be wiser. I could talk about this for longer, but I urge you all to maybe get my book on Amazon, Artificial Wisdom.
And I will get 5%, I hope, of all sales.
You already got a free copy. So.
All right, thank you so much for that. And I mean, you can tell us a little bit more based on the wisdom you're giving to your entrepreneurs in the venture builders. So a little bit more about the regulatory side, like Bilal touched upon also on it. I'm sure there's a lot of hurdles there, and I'm sure a lot of people that are having companies in this space believe that, okay, how can we move on? And you as a venture builder, what's your role, into helping them? Because when you invest in companies is one thing, right? Sometimes you can stop at the investment, and sometimes, like it was mentioned, you can be more involved, but you are involved from the start to the end. So how does that look like from your side?
Look, we look at the venture on a three pillars. Every venture it has the market side, the technology side, and let's say the funding or the finance and regulatory side. So these three, we start building them from day one, not from day 100. Especially in deep tech, if you don't build these pillars, you end up building a product that does not have the right business model, and or it does not have the possibility to be licensed or even put in the market. On the other hand, the way we build it or we think about it is also linked into a triangle, this triangle of the connectivity between the founder, the co-founders, and the team. So the founder is the inspiring source of that vision and mission, and the co-founders are the C-level experts who are fully in, not trying or not paid to deliver a job, but they are fully in. And the team plays as well a huge role. The team has to be fully in as well. So this connectivity, these three connected particles, let's use the XPANSE jargon. So these three particles create that wave, and that wave of building. And building doesn't mean developing and coding. Building means doing everything. It means validating, engaging, building, developing, breaking, correcting, listening, and doing it all every week, every day and every week. And that model, what brings something ready in certain amount of time. So the gap that we see often with founders in the market is that they start building a technology and they forget everything else. They forget the regulation, they forget the governance, they forget the readiness. They don't build something to be ready. They build something to show, to demonstrate. While if you really believe on what you're building, so you should build it as a builder, like a house. Don't build a house where it's beautiful from the outside and when you sleep it falls on you. So you have to build it completely from scratch. You have to think of everything. And to build that house, that kind of house, definitely you cannot just bring one builder. So it's a bunch of all builders. They know the architect, the painter, the guy who works with the wood, everybody doing his job. But all of them, they know that we're going to build a beautiful house, that we're going to live in it. So So regulation, it's a part of building, and it starts from day one. And the regulation here from a deep tech, it's even difficult compared to the, let's say, the regular startups. And think about it as a simple comparison. If, let's say, somebody want to build a mental health platform that connects patients with doctors, a lot of work. It's a hard work to be done, and it has certain regulation needed. But imagine you want to build a wearable or a device that has a lot of sensors and connected with a lot of other technologies, and all of them, they deliver something extraordinary to that person. So that's the deep tech. And so you need a lot of regulations and a lot of base for that regulation, and we take it internally in-house. That's why in our model of building, we have those pillars in-house, so that to make sure that the building is efficient. We cannot rely on consulting. The moment you go, any company, any startup wants to build and using the consulting services, it evaporates its money before even starting. So we built all that substance within our factory, our machine, and then we choose where to invest it. We invest it in something that really makes impact, and we believe on it. And when we go, as you said exactly, we go all in. We don't try. We go all in. That's it.
That's very nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we touched upon the investment, we touched upon academia. I want to touch upon the government now. A question for all of you. A little bit like, what's your relation? How do you see the government supporting, the deep tech space? I used to live in Switzerland, and Switzerland is known as the deep tech nation, and they even wrote many books about it. So the government has a very kind of big support there. How do you see it here in the region? And what would you like to ask, maybe, if you could? What kind of support from the investment side, from the venture builder side? So Bilal, maybe we start with you.
Yeah, so look, we're a fund backed by 10 sovereign wealth funds across the region. So the government is putting its money where its mouth is and supporting us, investing in a fund. We're a native fund built out of Abu Dhabi, ground up. We were investing out of sub 5 million 6 years ago. We now have $500 million in assets under management. That has been enabled by government institutions, but also government facilitation. If I think about venture builders, but also accelerators and incubators like Hub 71, the pace at which their own in-house policies have changed to enable companies to come to the UAE, build in the UAE. They've done away with having to have necessarily a local partner. You can now have a foreign-owned company. The support they give for even down to visas and office space. These are the things that make a founder's life so much easier for them to be able to then focus on building. So I think from a government support, a resource support, and an openness for regulatory support, I think it's all there. I think one thing that surprised me and has pleasantly surprised me over the last sort of year and a half being here has been the willingness to learn, right? So I remember, some of you may have seen some of the hearings on the Hill over the last few years with CEOs of, Meta or TikTok, and the just absolute delta between legislators and lawmakers and entrepreneurs and CEOs of tech companies. These are large tech companies whose products are used by every second or third person on the planet. So that's to say nothing of sort of deep tech and frontier tech. Whereas I've been pleasantly surprised, and I think it bodes well for the future of the UAE, but also Saudi Arabia, that legislators and lawmakers are really eager to learn. They're eager to learn about technology. They're eager to learn about what can be done with frontier tech. And they're eager to then take that learning and use it to strengthen their own institutions, support their own institutions, to build partnerships with outside entities that can perhaps bring knowledge and talent here. So, the boring answer is I think they need to keep doing that. I think if I had a request, it wouldn't be so much for deep tech startups. It would be more for what will invariably happen, which is some of these deep tech companies will start to grow and turn into growth stage companies, will start turning into much larger entities. And that is when they're going to need a lot more support to get capital to go public, if they want to go public, in order to expand even further and get plugged into new pools of capital, to develop partnerships regionally. Once they're at that stage and that size, that's going to require a whole reimagination. We're not there yet, but in anticipation of it, that would be one thing that I think should be front of mind.
Right, thank you. Dr. Kablan.
I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, and just maybe to summarize the point and to link it to what I've been working on. I mentioned wisdom, and wisdom is a big part of leadership in this region, especially in this country. The founder of the UAE, Sheikh Zayed, rahmatullah alayhi, may God rest his soul, we call him the wise man of Arabia. And that has instilled the spirit of wisdom and ruling and guiding and building by wisdom, which is why we're seeing these initiatives that are visions for the future, that are all centered around economic stimulation through innovation and technology, knowledge transfer, job creation, wealth creation, and that's the wise thing to do. So I think it's quite lucky and it's a blessing to be in this region, because wisdom is the main pillar of governance.
It's the name of your book.
That's why he's trying to
Artificial
link it. Amine, please.
Yeah, wisdom is the one that we chase in our life, and if we get a piece of it, then we really live in peace, and everybody of us should be chasing that wisdom every day, every time. And looking at this business environment and the region here, we can see that hope-driven, economy. Things are moving, driven by hope, and hope is a part of the wisdom. It's taken us to that level. From the entrepreneur's point of view, it's very important to be humble. If those people who want to build those businesses and they want to be something impactful, if they're not humble, it will not work. It will harm them and harm many other people. No matter experience you have or money you have, being humble is the start. And then always, it's not being humble. It should be a status, a continuous status. And for us, we look at those founders who really are mature. They understand these values, and they understand that it's not just a matter of making that success. Success is something that we define ourselves, and being together in a room of people who have values, it's something priceless. You cannot buy it, you cannot find it. And that's why we come back to the core of people. Having the right people with the right values, you can build anything in the world, as long as you are happy with it and you feel that energy, and then it's gonna work. Whatever obstacle along the way, it's gonna be not a showstopper, because you have the right people, the right values, and the right culture. You just need to push and start. For me, from a business level, I take business personal. Some people, they say business is business. I say business is personal. It's people. It's me, you. We are people. Those companies are not something that speaks, something that we made, right? But at the end of the day, it's me and you who are there. Our feelings are important. We are the core of that. We are the deep tech of that business. We are the most complicated and outstanding innovation you can ever see.
DeepMinds.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's the wisdom I would seek in my life.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I cannot say anything more after this beautiful note. I think I've been told also we are running out of time, but thank you so much to everyone. This was a great panel. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, and thanks to everybody for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.